Hello and welcome back to another episode of From the Stands Rochdale AFC, your weekly roundup of all things Rochdale. In today's episode we'll be sitting down and discussing the 1-0 victory against Sutton United on Bank Holiday Monday. We sit down with Adam from Stone's Cast as we look forward to the game this weekend against Wealdstone. Run the intro and we'll get straight into the video. So, welcome back to another video. We're going to just have a brief talk through the Sutton game before getting onto the interview with Adam. And judging by the stats, we were very much in control of the game, but I don't feel like we not every game is going to be like Gateshead, let's be honest. But I feel like Sutton defensively were excellent. I thought they were very, very good and very resolute. I mean, it's very close in terms of passing, given the game against Brackley. Liam Hogan did just short of what Truro did in the whole game, in his game alone. The shots, obviously, I don't feel like Sutton really pressed Watmouth to do much. I know he made 3 saves. It says, 3 saves. But again, I thought it was just a very controlled game, and I felt like we was in second gear mainly. I thought we'd get to a point where we'd struggle to score a goal, but I feel like as soon as we did, we were fine then, because that means Sutton had to come out and really play for it. But in terms of performances, you can't really fault any player, to be honest. I thought Barlow was a bit quiet. Obviously, he went off injured. I hope he's back soon, because it looks like maybe McBride will get that step up. Ebanks possibly could do with a rest soon, I think. I know he had one the other day, but I feel like he's really come out of his shell this season, especially. I think, he's turning a lot of doubters into believers, as Jurgen Klopp says, but he's been brilliant this year. And I honestly, I don't think I could fault many players so far this year. As you all know, I do preview the opposition for the next weekend, so I've been given the task of looking at Wealdstone. And I watched their game against Boston, and they were hands down the better team. I cannot fathom how Boston came away with the 3 points in this game, let alone a point. As Sam Cox does say in his interview, it's mental how they did not win that game. With XG 2.3, they had 16 shots. I think they hit the post like 2 or 3 times as well. They were just completely dominant. And Wealdstone do play a very similar way to us. They do like to play that patient football, build up from the back. They do like to play predominantly through the middle, how we play mostly down the sides. As you can see, there's 5 players alone in the middle of the park there. So I feel like it's either going to be whose midfield's better, our wings or their middle players. And that Abiro was brilliant in this game. He really did run his heart out, but make sure you keep an eye out for Philip Chinedu's little marauding runs. It's very Joel Matip of him. And let's get into who I think is the strength and the weakness of the opposition. I feel like the big key player for Wealdstone will be Dion Woodman. He's like the heart of the defence. He's kind of what Ebanks is for us, and his passing's very, very good. In terms of weak link, I've gone Jack Cook, but not because of his ability, but the fact that he's a right-sided centre-back, just like Karen Gordon. He really does like to bomb forward. In this game against Boston, as you can see, he's very high up. Wealdstone did stay up by the skin of their teeth last season, but going into this season, Sam Cox looks like he's off to quite a good start. How do you make of his start so far?
Yeah, good. I mean, I think before the start of the season, expectations were very low. We've had a big turnover of players. I think some people were a little bit underwhelmed by the appointment of Sam Cox, even though he's, had a long history with the Stones. But the board during the summer made some quite public statements about sort of reducing the budget from where it was last year. So I think, expectations were very low. So I think if you'd have given most Stones fans 9 points from the first 5 games, they'd have bitten your hand off. Obviously, it's a little bit tempered because we lost both games over the bank holiday weekend. But yeah, I think on the whole, signs are very positive.
Now, I watched the game against Boston on the bank holiday Monday, and I noticed a couple of the players added into the side, mostly about their height. They are quite big boys. Do you think that is something that is aimed at recruitment wise?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. This was a conversation we might have had. I think I had it in the pub before the Woking game with a few Stones fans about whether this sort of team of giants was by design. And I think there is a degree of that. I think Sam Cox has recognised that we need to be hard to beat. And I mean, Shakuna's not particularly tall, but as you said, Chineu, Jack Cook, who's been a stalwart for us for a number of years, Dion Woodman, and even players like Enzio Baldwin, who's our sort of marauding winger. He's very dangerous from set pieces. And Sean Dark, our main striker, he's 6'4" or something. So yeah, big strong side, and we've suddenly looked dangerous from set pieces, and that's actually where our winner came from against Woking, where we dominated much of the game, but then Woking got a leveller, and we suddenly looked like we couldn't string 2 passes together, but we scored the winner from a set piece. So yeah, definitely, I think by design.
Yeah, that's something I did notice, especially against Boston. The whole far post crossing from the corners, they look quite menacing, and there was a couple of goalmouth scrambles in that as well.
How the ball didn't drop in one of them, I don't know, but yeah, frustrating defeat was at Boston.
Obviously, the big elephant in the room is Alex Reid. Was a monumental loss last season, and obviously he was a very good player in the goal scoring department. A player like him is quite unsustainable to try and keep hold of. I know you had him on loan, but obviously his deal was up at the end of the year, and it's quite hard to tempt players like that back. Do you feel your side have the firepower to keep up this season?
I mean, yes, Alex Reid. Players like him, and by players like him, I mean proven National League goal scorers. Someone like Manny Disarue, who we're very fond of at Wealdstone and would love to have him. But proven goal scorers in their peak and Wealdstone don't go together. So to have had a player like him was quite a thing for us. And as you say, it was unsustainable. Certainly with what the board said in terms of kind of budget for this year, but also he was doing a lot of commuting down from Manchester to play for us. So it was always going to be, I think, unlikely that he was going to stay with us. So to answer your question, have we got the firepower? When we recorded our sort of Stones cast sort of National League prediction about a week before the season started, myself and the other 2 panellists predicted the Stones to go down kind of on the lack of firepower. We subsequently made a couple of good signings. Nathan Shakuna, who you referenced, he knows where the back of the goal is, back of the net. And a guy called Nathan Youngcoombs, who annoyingly is injured. I don't know how long he's out for. But yeah, he looks really decent. He had a good little spell at AFC Wimbledon in League 2 a couple of years ago, but coin a phrase that I've heard, he's got hamstrings like paper. A lot is resting on Sean Darkwa, who I think has a really high ceiling in terms of the capabilities, but he's had numerous injury problems. In fact, he came back from injury against you guys in the game at Wealdstone last season, lasted 4 minutes, and then missed the rest of the season. So it's great to see him back. But right now, he doesn't look like our answer. Whether he can find his form again, I don't know, but we're in desperate need of another striker.
I feel like this next question ties in quite well. So, having watched the game against Boston, Wealdstone, I don't know if I'm saying Wealdstone right, by the way, or Wealdstone. Yeah, Wealdstone. Right. It's us novels.
Yeah.
They play a very similar way. Like, they have the 3 at the back, they're very comfortable in possession on the ball. And just like us last year with Cairo Mitchell, we struggled to get those goals. Like, we were creating chances but struggling with the goals. Are the Wealdstone fans more impressed with this new controlled style of play?
I mean, it's kind of been an identity that we've had in our 6 years, 5.5 years in the National League. Originally under Stuart Maynard, who has, of course, today become manager of York. We deliberately played a very possession-based style of football. And that kind of tied in with the operating model that we had at the time, because we were one of the few part-time teams in the league. We're still, I mean, we're not full-time, but we're not part-time. We're that sort of hybrid model in between. Yeah. So I think there's always been a sort of an ethos and identity that we try and play that way, almost to minimise if the other team hasn't got the ball and they've got good players. It's almost self-fulfilling to try and stop yourself getting hurt. Some fans under Maynard really struggled with that style of football, and if you only have to look at the goal we conceded against Boston, that we played ourselves into trouble, and that's happened a few times. Thankfully, I think that's the only one that's actually led directly to a goal. But yeah, it certainly gives some of our fans the heebie-jeebies. I don't know. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because you can't just lump it up. Even though Adark was a big lad, it's not really his game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think quite often you find if you just lump it forwards, it comes straight back at you, and you end up under pressure a lot more. So it's a difficult one. I think we do it quite well, and we've got the players. You mentioned Alfie Massey, who's on loan to us from Millwall. He is a class act.
How you've managed to grab him, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure many Millwall fans are surprised that he dropped, let alone to Wealdstone, but to that level.
Mm-hmm.
But he's our sort of quarterback. He picks the ball up off the defence and sprays the passes, I guess, in a little bit way like is it Ryan East that does for you? Yeah. So I don't know. It splits opinion. I think some people get really agitated when we start passing it around and the keeper's playing it to the centre of his edge of his box and stuff. But I don't know, it's effective when it works.
Yeah, I think we're 3 years into our Jim McNulty philosophy, and some fans are still a bit iffy about it. Mostly the older generation of fans would rather they just hit it up and deal with it from there, the old-fashioned way. Having listened to your podcast, a couple of your co-hosts are not very positive going into the season. They think it's the survival, that big word. I know the previous 2 games have ended in defeat, but I personally have seen quite a lot from that performance against Boston that can really get, really drive them up that league. Do you concur with some fans that survival is the ultimate goal, or do you think genuinely could push on to easy safety?
I think a lot of people come from a survival perspective, partly because of our history. And if you don't know about our history, there's a brilliant YouTube video that was done by a podcaster who's a YouTuber who's up your way, called Stump Peg. She came down and told our history with me, and it was a brilliant sort of representation. So there's always been a bit of a something about Wealdstone that is very protective and almost half glass empty, because we have been through the mill and back. But also it's just because of where we are as a club in comparison to yourselves and most of the sides in the National League. Like I say, we are not full-time. We have a ramshackle small stadium. We have probably by a long way the smallest budget in the league. Quite how we've stayed in this league for 5 seasons is, I think an unbelievable feat in itself. A few of those seasons, and under Maynard, we actually did it quite comfortably. So yeah, I think expectations were low because of the fact that we so nearly went down last year. The fact that we quite openly said that we were going to reduce the budget and look at young, hungry players on much less wages. But I agree with you. From what we've seen in the first 5 games, yeah, I think we're in a fairly healthy place. We look like we have more than just there's a plan A, there's a plan B, there's different ways to score goals. I think with us, we are probably 2 players away from being a very good side, but probably only 2 injuries or suspensions away from going the other way. So I think from what I've seen so far, and knowing that we'll still hopefully bring a couple more in, maybe on loan, which is we've ploughed the loan market quite well with academy clubs around London. If we can get ourselves a striker in particular, I'm quietly confident we'll have more than enough to stay up, and then who knows where that takes you. Hopefully a cup run again.
Just adding to that, I was listening to your podcast and they were discussing this National League Cup. Now, again, we are both on the opposite ends of it. I completely respect it. I spoke to Andy, who's the Brackley Town announcer, the other week, and he said, with teams with a smaller budget like yourselves, you really have to push for this, for a bit of a cup running, even if it's in this with like less of a reputation on this cup. But I think it was something like $6,000 a win, I think. And then progressing.
I thought it was 8, but
even
now
better
it might have changed.
But even better then. So like, I feel like what we've done now is we've opted into it, unlike teams like Carlisle and York, and because we're trying to still control a budget, even though we're quite wealthy now. We're trying to build this squad for 2 competitions, if you get what I mean. Do you think the squad can hold that?
I know we've brought in some players who I think have been brought in almost purely for the National League Cup. So people like Moussa Diarra, another giant who's, I don't know, he's at the back end of his career, but he's a great experienced player. We signed a guy called Marcus Day, who came up from a National League South. I think where he came from, Taunton maybe. And Daniel Nkramar, who came on against Boston and actually did pretty well. But these are the types of players who I think will be on the periphery of the National League team, but will be playing week in, week out. We've got a strong academy, and I imagine we'll be bringing a few players in from the academy. And we had a few trialists playing games last year as well, so it's an opportunity, I think, to look at players. So, I'm not being funny, $8,000 for a win, that contributes quite significantly to a week's wages for us.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not to be scoffed at. And if you can get through the group stage and progress, it can be quite lucrative. Obviously, FA Cup money is far greater. But I mean, we got to the second round of the Cup last year, but our record in the Cup prior to that has been lamentable at best. So yeah, I think we'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I genuinely think a better outfit than most think this season, just by having been in the league a couple of years. I know we played you a couple of years ago. I think it was a Tuesday night. It sounds strange, but I think we beat you 3-0, I think.
3-0, yeah.
And I think Alarakia played for you then, and he was unbelievable. So, like, even... I mean, if I recall that game, and I was there for that on a Tuesday night, and it was rough.
It was in the spell when we had David. So it was just after Stuart Maynard had left us and gone to Notts County, and we had David Noble in charge, and the wheels were just coming off at that point.
God.
And I remember at half time, you were 3-0 up at half time, and it was like game over. And I remember chatting to one of our players who still remains with us at half time and saying, "What's going on?" And he was going, "God knows."
Oh, God.
And shortly after that, David Noble was sacked. So that was actually kind of probably almost the lowest point for us, that defeat.
I mean, it's, you get to this level and it's you sign players and sometimes you don't recognise the name, but the name Alarakia stuck out when we played you. I thought he was brilliant against us.
How's he doing? I know he's a little bit in and out for you at the moment, isn't he?
It's a bit of a strange one. He missed a penalty in the FA Trophy semi-final last year, and his confidence has just absolutely plummeted since. Until a couple of weeks ago, he did score a really good goal against Altrincham, and it seems to have like boosted him back up again. Like, there's obviously a player there. He can take players on. We all know what kind of player he is, but he's sort of deployed as that left wing back, and he can't defend, and he just gets exploited on that. But I feel like he could come good again this year, hopefully.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was hit and miss with us, but when he hit, he was a joy to watch.
Yeah,
he could carry you up the pitch, and I mean, the only thing you'd say about him was his end product. he sometimes overplayed or didn't pick the right ball. But then probably if he did, he wouldn't be playing in the National League.
Yeah.
But yeah, we miss him, and we certainly would love to have him back, or a player like him with a bit of flair that can get you up the pitch.
Thank you for that. I really enjoyed our chat. If you don't know, obviously he has a podcast called the Stones Cast. From an outsider's point of view, it was a joy to listen to. So make sure you all go check out that for the game this weekend, especially.
Good stuff.
So thank
Good
you very
stuff.
much.
You there Saturday? You coming down to London?
I can't Saturday, no, unfortunately. But hopefully one day soon. I was half tempted, but I've got commitments.
Fair play. Well, maybe we'll see you up at your place when we're up there.
I'll happily buy you a drink if you're up here.
I'll hold you to that, mate.
No worries. Thank you very much.
All right, buddy. Cheers.
Thank you again to Adam for that wonderful interview about the Wealdstone and Rochdale game this weekend. Let's hope that we can finally get 3 points at the Vale. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll hopefully be uploading a new video next week in a preview. So again, thank you all for your support, and I'll see you next time.